Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where three people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And we got Miranda this week.
Hey.
A little rotation we got going on here.
That gets weird, right? And
What's
this
that?
week we have three guys or
Three people.
Three people.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what sticks, and
Right.
I don't think I quite found it yet, but I'm working at it. So how's your week going so far, guys? Anything crazy happening or?
We don't have Magnus.
Oh, okay. Just before we started recording though today, it was pouring down
yes.
raining.
It took me an hour to get home from a normally 20-minute drive.
20-minute drive.
Yeah.
Holy
It took me
shit.
an hour.
Man. And then you said that tomorrow is supposed to get really crazy as well. It's just that random.
Yeah.
It rains for just like 30 minutes around here, and then it lets
Tomorrow's
up.
supposed to be bad thunderstorms too.
Really?
All day.
All day.
Well, anyways,
We just need it out of the way by Friday.
Yes.
yeah. You got anything special on Friday? Just
We're going out of town.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Where to?
Yes.
Or do you mind me
Yeah,
asking?
well, we can talk about it. We're going to Houston
Yeah.
to the NRA National Convention.
Oh,
Because we're
wow.
both firearms instructors.
Fun.
So I've never been.
Bring me back a souvenir. I'm kidding. Yes.
There may be souvenirs to be had there.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
I think
I
I'm
just
going
wanna-
to take the
I just
day
wanna
off
keep-
Sunday from my job Sunday
Yeah.
and do the 3 days there.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. And it's the whole weekend?
It's the whole weekend. I've taken Friday off from my real job.
Right.
And we may leave really early Friday morning and stay Friday and Saturday night
Oh, that sounds
and
like
then
so
come
much
back
fun.
Sunday. And then
Cool.
Memorial Day. I
Yeah.
guess
You're
this
right.
airs
I
on
forgot.
Memorial Day. Huh?
Yeah, I forgot this episode's going to air on Memorial Day. As you can tell, we're recording this the week prior.
I kind of messed that up, didn't it?
No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I forgot this is an extended weekend for a lot of people.
It's really extended for me because I get 4 days now.
Which never happens.
Yeah, never.
That's crazy.
So we're going to have fun. We're going to go hang out, be together,
That's awesome.
look at some guns.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my favorite Polish restaurant is closed, but their grocery
Aw.
store is still open, so we're taking a freezer back.
Hey, there you go.
Yep.
Taking some stuff back.
Probably take the ice chest and
Yeah.
yeah. Heck yeah.
Kielbasa is in our future.
That's right.
Oh man. Wow.
Mhm.
I've never actually been to any, like you said, it's a Polish restaurant.
Mhm.
All right,
It's
I've
called La
never-
Polonia. It's one of the best restaurants in Houston, but it's been closed since COVID started.
Oh man.
Well, we just went to a couple of weekends ago. We went to a city that I lived for quite a few years, and I kind of showed her my little jaunt and places that I like to
Right.
go. And so Miranda lived in Houston for a while. So
Okay.
we're gonna combine kind of showing me where she was from and some of her favorite places, and eat at some restaurants.
Yeah.
We had a real good time doing that in my city.
Yeah.
But we're gonna go to Houston and just have a good time,
That's awesome.
eat some good food. I
yeah.
like that.
I mean,
And
yeah,
look
you
at
can't-
some pew-pews.
Yeah, you can't. You can't really go wrong with that.
Nope.
Food and guns.
Mm-hmm.
This I have the next big thing I have is my mom. I know she listens to the show, so hey mom, a little shout out to you.
Hey, Mom.
Yeah, she has her school is having a big graduation.
Okay.
And happens every year around this time. And I usually do photography for that. So that's like the next big thing I'm like preparing for. There's other stuff at work, but like the next like fun thing that I get to like, really kind of stretch my legs on is doing some really fun, like quick photography stuff where
Well,
it's
I was going to
there's a lot of
see,
things.
we haven't done yet is we don't have any engagement pictures.
Oh,
I was going to ask you
yeah.
and see if you wanted to do some kind of a cool engagement picture
that,
somewhere.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
We
really
need to find a cool location.
Yes.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd be willing to do that.
Oh, of
but just kind
course.
of something.
Yeah. The only thing like for situations like that is when I wish I had like a really big photography studio
Right.
where I could have like a big like white backdrop or something, or like a cool like those like paper backdrops or whatever. I don't
Or
have
a
anything.
green screen.
Yeah. I could just green screen you guys anywhere.
Does that mean we get matching outfits?
No.
Dang it.
Maybe that's my that's
I always burst in my bubble.
Yes.
that's my stipulation. I only do photography for engagements if it's a matching outfit.
See, there you go.
Oh,
Thanks,
well, I
thanks.
guess- I
Thanks,
guess-
Ian.
I guess we don't have engagement
Oh,
pictures.
come
then.
on.
So we were talking about restaurants, and Miranda,
Yes.
you said you had a question for us this week with the restaurants and things like that.
Yes. Do
Uh-oh.
you think that the tipping culture has gotten out of control?
out of control. That's a good one.
Well, it used to be 10%.
Yeah, now it feels like it's 20%. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think I even pay taxes like that.
I don't either.
We've been in restaurants because we tend to eat out, a few times a week. We've been in restaurants lately where it gives the tip suggestion at the bottom. And it doesn't even
Right,
give
right.
15% anymore. It's 18, 20, and 25.
Really?
Now, here's the thing. Being a kind of foodie, I
Right.
don't mind paying extra for really good service.
Yeah.
I really don't. And that's
Yes.
we talk about that almost every time. Rate the service. How do you feel
Yeah.
they did? What do you think they did?
Right.
Miranda's kind of down the board. She likes to give a certain amount each time. But
Right.
I'm like, if it's good service, make them want to see you again and you'll get even better service.
Right.
But you forget that I'm Canadian.
No, I don't.
The running joke is what's the difference between a Canadian and a canoe?
Uh-oh. I don't know. What is
Oh,
what
I
would
know
be?
this one. So you should know, Canada boy.
No, I don't.
How much does Canada pay you to name them every episode?
Not nearly enough.
Okay.
Well, the answer to the $1 million question is that canoes tip.
Canoes. Oh, man. That's good.
So
Is that true, Canada boy?
I don't know. I mean,
Did they tip when you were
I mean,
in Canada?
I think that I went to a handful of restaurants when I was in Canada that had suggestions like 10, 15, 18% or
yeah,
whatever.
Canadians tip, but not well.
Okay.
I see.
I would say that it's not, tipping culture is not as ingrained up there.
Right.
And you'd be far more apt to see someone doing 10 to 15% than the 20% plus
Yeah,
that
or
you see here.
25. Jeez.
No, one of the things we had our engagement party at the time, our favorite restaurant, and I think it's
Right.
maybe back there again. But we had 18 people, I think it was, at the party. And so they're going to do an automatic gratuity on there,
Right.
no matter what the service is.
Yeah.
And the service stunk.
Right.
So I don't feel like if I get bad service, I should have to pay. But if I get great service, I want to pay more.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of upsets me a little bit. Now,
Right.
over a party of 6, you don't even get a choice anymore.
But that, again, that varies on the restaurant. My older two kids both work at a well-known local restaurant, and it's not it's a higher-end restaurant as far as this
Yeah.
town is concerned.
Yeah.
They don't auto-grat. So
Oh, okay.
there is no auto-gratuity. So they'll have parties come in of 10, 20, 30 people,
Yeah.
and, it might be $1,000 table, and they're left $5.
Yikes.
And
And you see, and I think that's
and
a
that's
crime. That should be
routine.
a
Yeah.
crime.
Right.
That's routine. So, and to me, that's a failure of management,
Right.
because it's just like you should put those policies and procedures into place to protect your
Right,
staff.
right.
So I see things from both perspectives, because
and-
as kids in the industry that
Right.
depend on tips, I'm like, pay your servers.
That's the
But I also think it's gotten out of hand, because now we've got the mailman want tips at Christmas time. You tip your hairdresser, you tip the lady that washes your dog.
The
you tip,
garbage people want to
the
get
garbage
tipped
people
now.
want tips. Your house cleaner, if you have a house
Right.
cleaner, they want tip. Everybody wants a tip.
Yeah.
Where do we draw the line on you're doing a service for a rate or a fee? You don't need a tip.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so this is the how I have structured my life when it comes to tipping. There are certain things that I know I as like a cultural obligation I need to tip for.
Sure.
Like for servers, they get paid no money. I think that's unfair. I
Right.
think that we should like get away from tipping a wage, and they should get paid a regular wage.
Well, that's how
Because-
it's done in Europe.
Well,
You
yeah,
don't tip.
yeah.
It's actually really uncool
Yeah.
to tip in Europe, but they get paid decent money.
Right. Well, and that's where I kind of draw the line for certain things. I know this is probably wrong, and someone will probably tell me that I'm wrong. And
Well, we try
get
to
upset.
offend at least one people
Exactly.
every
I'm about to
episode.
offend probably some people in the service industry.
Okay.
If you're getting paid a wage, like a decent living wage, and I'm talking about $10 to $15 or whatever, like you're getting paid pretty decent money, I don't think I should tip you unless you go above and beyond to like make this
Exactly.
experience phenomenal.
Exactly.
Then I'll give you something.
I
But
went-
it shouldn't be expected for you to do your job, your just base rate job you're getting paid for, and then for me to then like pad your wallet a little bit I don't feel comfortable
On
with
my
that.
way to my church job on Sundays, I usually stop and get an Egg McMuffin
Right.
and something to drink. And this last Sunday on my way, I pulled up to the window, and the window, this is the first one where you pay, had a tip jar.
Okay.
Went to the second one where they give you your food, and they had a tip jar.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. You're getting paid. Like you're working your job. Like I don't understand.
I mean, yeah, who would tip at McDonald's?
The thing is,
there was money in it. Now I know they could probably put money in it to, give you a subliminal message that you need to put money in it. But
right.
Really?
Well, I worked at a pretty big coffee restaurant, and that was the same thing. We got paid like a decent wage, and we also had a tip jar because again for the coffee establishment that I've been with, it's been a thing they've had for a while because it has a very similar mindset to bartenders. And I want to talk about bartenders whenever we really get into this discussion, but I think it's that same sort of thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, this person is making you a drink, like handcrafted drink right in front of you, and kind of like busting their ass doing it, and you go ahead and give a little extra. I never expected anyone to tip. Like I was like, this is just because it is part of our function as a business. It is part as a supervisor. I was supposed to like put that money in a deposit bag, and it's supposed to go to the people that work there. And there's like there was a whole system in place to like accommodate tips. It wasn't just something that like we decided to do one day. So it was almost an expectation, but I never expected. I was like,
but it was a pool too, right? Y'all divvied it up on everybody.
Yes. So however many hours you worked, it was the grand total of the tips that was acquired divided up by the amount of people that worked that day and the hours that you worked or whatever. And of course it factored into also the week as well.
There was a show with Gordon Ramsay on it where he goes in and rescues restaurants.
Oh yeah.
And the dude, the owner, had a tip jar and people would pay in that tip jar. He was keeping the tips.
No.
It wouldn't go to the employees. It went to him.
Oh my gosh.
Gordon Ramsay lost his mind.
Of course. That's
lost
messed
his
up.
mind. Yeah, it is messed up.
That's real messed up.
Yeah. And illegal.
And illegal.
Yeah. Well, and so that's the thing. I really feel for people like in like the restaurant industry, because it's like you talked about before. It's like they could, for a local restaurant like that, they can have a bill over $1,000 and only tip $5, and that's just is what it is. Like that kind of seems a little messed up, especially if it's like a big party that like requires a lot of work. That person, even though they worked harder, is not making like as much money as someone working an equivalent amount for a way higher wage.
Right.
At like a McDonald's, for instance, just swiping cards and handing out burgers. You know what I mean? Like it's a little different, in my opinion.
I would personally like to see tip culture just go away.
Yeah.
I think, if we just paid people a flat, a fair rate, and, you either work hard and you move up the ladder, because a lot of these jobs, historically, you had them when you were a teenager, you had them in it's your first job, and then you move on to greener pastures, you move on to bigger and better things. And nowadays, we don't have that. We have people that are staying in positions for long periods of time. And when you've got people that are dependent on tips, and there's a significant percentage of the population, as you know, if you remember when you were in the service industry, don't pay. There's a lot of people that don't tip. There's a lot of people that, one of the things that, at the restaurant that my kids work at is people like to order the Maui steak. So they have a whole nickname for the night that people like to come in and order the Maui steak. They'll eat 75 to 95% of the steak, and then they'll call over the server and say it wasn't cooked right, and they'll send it back. And that restaurant has the policy of taking it off the bill if you complain.
No.
And so people know this. And so, they'll people, if it's a table of 4 and they've got 4 $50 steaks, the steaks get taken off. So then they're just getting billed for their drinks. And so the server, meanwhile, had a $250 ticket. It gets dropped down to $45, and then they get tipped on the $45 if they get tipped at all, because there's a significant percentage of the population that does not tip.
Wow. That is so messed up.
Again, it's a failure of management.
Yeah, you're right. And going back to what you were talking about as far as like tipping for bartenders is what I think is something that I don't think they would be okay eradicating it all.
Right.
I feel like bartenders would be super against getting rid of tips.
Well, because they don't have to pay taxes on it. Think about it.
Well, but I think it's also the fact that's where they get.
There's a couple of guys that are really good bartenders, but really good looking women that are bartenders. Make a bankroll.
Oh yeah,
every time they do something.
I had some friends that were
pay no taxes on it because you don't report it.
Right. I had some friends that were pretty decent bartenders at like a very big college bar in our area, and it was not hard for them to walk home in like a Friday, Saturday night with upwards of $500-$600, and I was like, "What? That's just your wage? Like that's not even your wage. That's just."
Well, honestly, they're earning $2.13 an hour.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say you're not getting paid anything for.
I used to have a friend when I was in Colorado, little cute little blonde headed girl, wore the little Daisy Dukes and the boots and the little country vest. She was making $1,000 a night.
Oh my god!
just for running some beer around.
Yeah, right.
But hey, that's what she got paid to do. Yep. And it was a lot of money.
I believe it. But it's moments like. It's situations like that I can see how like people in those scenarios that are like really banking off of it would be like, no, don't get rid of it. Because even if she gets paid $15, even $20 an hour, she's not going to be making $1,000 a weekend. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
So that's crazy to think about.
But you got to think about it from the aspect, since you're talking about bartenders, you have to think about it from the aspect of the owner. You know, they're salesmen.
Right.
Okay. They get paid on how many beers that they sell,
right?
Because that's how they get tipped. Well, that's also how the bar owner manager makes money, by how much beer they sell or drinks they sell or food they sell.
Right.
So it behooves the bartender to make some sales.
Wow.
But could they do that via a commission?
They're still tipping.
Not really.
That would be considered bee drinking, I think, and that's against the law, I think. You can't make money. Well, no, that's if you drink it. Never mind. Yeah, I guess that could work.
I just know when I was in Europe, depending on where you were in Europe, there was a few countries that tipping was acceptable, but the staff all earned a regular wage.
Right.
But, a nice tip would be a couple bucks or it was, you didn't have to leave a set amount like here where you're putting 20% on everything. There was other countries that it's considered an insult if you leave a tip because...
Isn't it like Japan? It's like that. It's like you leave a tip and it's like, that's kind of disrespectful.
Yeah. It's considered that in a lot of countries across Europe because they don't... They think that you're basically telling them you have a crappy job,
right.
I'm better than you.
Yeah, I'm looking down on you.
Yeah. So, I think we need to really just overhaul the whole the industries, particularly the service industry.
Yeah.
But I don't think everybody's job deserves a tip.
Yeah.
In the first place.
So Mallory just had a situation earlier today. She was wanting to order from a local restaurant somewhere and have it delivered because she was like, she was really busy at her job in the office. I can't really leave. But I want this. I was having this craving for this one thing at this restaurant, some sort of pasta dish. I was like, I just want this. And was like, I know that I can pay to have it delivered. It's not hard, and it's like right there. It's easily accessible. But they wouldn't deliver if it was under a certain amount.
Right. And
so she asked one of her coworkers or whatever. Long story short, so she got 2 orders of something. So she had enough money to have it delivered. Mm-hmm. But what got her is that there was a delivery charge, and it was it was not a small amount, or for a food dish. It was something like $12 or $15.
It used to be $5.
And so she was like, okay, a delivery charge, I guess, whatever. But then they made sure to specifically say this does not include. That is not the tip. There is also expected to be a tip for your driver that is going to deliver the things to you. And so she's like, I'm not only just paying for the food. There's this mysterious delivery charge I have to pay for, and then I also am expected to tip the driver.
And the menus that a lot of these restaurants are using for their Uber Eats and all these delivery type of things are already upcharged. You know, they have a reduced item menu that's
Yeah,
upcharged.
right. And so she was like, I just wanted like this simple.
This pasta just cost her $54.
Yeah, she was like, I just wanted this simple pasta dish, and next thing you know, $50 something later, she's like, I was like, it wasn't even worth it. I didn't even want it that bad. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy to think about. So yeah, I've thought about that as well, because I know that like pizza chains do the same thing. Is that they'll say like, that's why I stopped like getting pizza delivered. I live like less than 5 minutes away from my local Domino's, and I usually just go drive down there and pick it up, because it's not that bad for me to do it all, because I was realizing like I'm paying for the food, and there's this weird delivery charge that I thought was like, oh, it's gonna like pay the driver to like do his thing. I like that, include it all. I mean, if that's something that needs to be done, go ahead. But then they're like, no, but that also does not include like, you know, he's not going to get paid like, or he's going to get paid, but not like, I don't know. It was like, there's an expected tip involved. And I was like,
remember when it used to be that your pizza would be delivered in so many minutes or it was free?
Yeah, right.
And then they started putting on like a $2 fee or whatever for pizza.
Right.
And now it's, I don't know what, $4 or $5 for the delivery fee, plus, you know, a few dollars for each particular pizza. And, it's a very expensive venture. It used to be you order pizza because it was a cheap way to feed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap way to feed a bunch of people anymore.
No.
That's why you need to get a big green egg and a pizza stone and learn how to cook your own pizza.
Dude, I would love to have like a little wood fire oven to make pizzas in. Oh, it'd be so much fun.
The big green egg works just as good.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's like a local restaurant that we have that is also like it's like an Italian restaurant, pizza joint kind of thing. Mallory really loves it. She loves the place. I don't mind it. I think it's nice. But a lot of times when we go there, the pizza is a little bit more expensive than like a takeout pizza would be. And I don't think it's quite as good, personally speaking. She really loves it, so I really go for her. So she loves it a lot. So I'm like, okay, you know, it's okay. If we spend a little extra money for a pizza I don't really care for, it's for her. She loves it.
Right. But gotta make the woman happy.
But the hard part is like, usually have to, you know, if the service is decent, I have to tip. And so then it's like, sometimes this pizza can, you know, go upwards of $20-something. I'm like, now I'm really having a hard time justifying this pizza that I don't think is
that you don't like anyway.
I don't like that much. I'm like, oh man. And there's other places like that we've gone that I'm like, I'll spend some money on a steak, and then I'm like, man, it was not the greatest, and now I'm spending a lot of money on this steak that I was like, oh, this is not
right.
Well, and that's what we've run into, is because, you know, I'll
right.
tip between 15 and 20% depending on how they acted, where our drinks kept full, you know, all the different things that you look at. And we can have an absolutely horrible meal, and somebody's like, give them $20. And I was like, they don't deserve $20. Like the meal was awful. And he's like, no, they did a good job. You can't help what the kitchen does.
Exactly. There's something. I'm usually pretty.
And see, I go for the experience. Yeah. As much as a foodie and chef type person as I am, I can have a bad meal and still have a good time. Right. Because I realize that things happen.
Yes.
You know, I'm in it for the memory. When, you know, Miranda and I go out, or we go out with friends, that's what I care about. Yeah. I don't care about the food. Food, great, not great, whatever. Service is great. If you have a server that's engaged with you and you know, bantering back and forth, and you got a great little rhythm, and everybody's having a good time, and the food sucks.
Can I talk about a local place of ours that I love a lot? And
can you mention it?
No, not. I don't think I want to. I don't want to call him out.
Okay.
It's a good story though.
Okay.
Because my favorite server that worked there just moved to like a coffee shop, like somewhere in the same town, but he's not working there anymore. And I was like, I got a little sad, so I went there. It's like a tea shop. It's like a tea and eatery kind of place. It's really nice. It's got this whole like British aesthetic because it's really supposed to be like tea and other like sort of like popular.
How do I not know about this place?
I know, right?
Oh, well, afterwards I'll tell you all about it. It's a great place.
Okay.
It's really good. They got all kinds of, they make scones in-house. It's just that kind of vibe. They got all kinds of really great teas. They have a whole separate menu with teas and stuff on it. It's a really great place. The first time I went there, Mallory had found it, and I took her there for her birthday. And we went there, and this guy, his name was Michael, and he made the experience. He made it an experience. I was like, we went to this place and it already looks super cool. It's got like this kind of, you know, Frank Sinatra type jams happening. You know, it's a cool vibe around it. We're sitting at this table and we go all out. We get the whole spread. It's our birthday. So I was like, let's get the whole tea time experience.
You supersized it for her.
Right. The little finger sandwiches, the little chocolate covered strawberries, you name it. That came with like a little cheese board. It was a whole thing.
You had Miranda chocolate covered strawberries.
Where are we going at?
So right. So anyways, he was just super nice. He was a very personable guy, and again, he was just talking to us and stuff. And obviously, I was like, "This is our first time. I don't know what I'm getting myself into." And he's like, "Trust me, it's super cool." And he just really walked us through this whole experience. And I was like asking him questions about things, and he would come up to the table with like our things, and because it kind of came in courses. And he's like, "Would you like me to walk you through it?" And I was like, "Oh, please, go ahead." And he was like, "This is this special kind of cheese. It's great. It pairs awesome with this." And he was like, and then of course they came out with this little tower of like all the different accoutrement on it, like all the sandwiches and everything on it. And he was like, "So up here at the bottom, we have these special quiches or something or whatever, and it's got this special stuff. We make it in house, and it's to die for." And he was like, I mean, he was making this whole. It already looked excellent, and then to have this person like really go that extra mile and like really kind of walk us through what all these different things are.
So why shouldn't you tip that person extra?
And precisely,
that person should get tipped max. I don't care if it's 50% of the bill. That person should get max dollars for the bag.
I purchased that bill. It was for her birthday, so I was like, I'll go ahead and cover everything. So I bought that. I found for sale they had like a little fancy like teacup, a little saucer. Teacup itself, very pretty looking. It was like this awesome blue trimmed with gold. I loved it. And I was like, I really want it. So I purchased all that, bought myself a little teacup, and I tipped him pretty well. So like, needless to say, I left there. I was like, that was a lot of money, but I was like,
memory.
Yeah, I was like, that experience was well worth it. And like I said, whenever I went there over this past weekend, I heard that he had. He got himself a new job somewhere else. And I was like, oh,
I was going to ask for him.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm so sad. I was like, but because he was so nice. But anyways, like I said, I wanted to share that experience.
Certain restaurants that we like to partake of.
Right.
And we have certain servers at those restaurants that we go out of our way to ask for. So it's
Carson with a K.
Carson with a K.
Carson with a K.
We had Robert.
Robert.
Yep.
Nice.
And, so it's one of those things that you do reward a server that you have a good relationship with.
Of course.
I think that, from what I've seen with my kids who've been in the service industry kind of since they were, in their early or mid to early teens, they've worked at a lot of different restaurants. I think restaurants take advantage of their workers. And when they've got the workers that are earning $2.13 an hour, I know, the restaurant that my kids are at now, they have 2 to 3 hours worth of side work that they're expected to do before they leave after their shift. And so, they're rolling cutlery and they're cleaning and they're doing all these different things.
Right.
And I'm thinking for $2.13 an hour. And they'll get fired if they leave, even though their shift is over. And I'm just like, that's horrible. If, these restaurants have 18 people on at a shift and all of them are required to do 2 to 3 hours of side work. Like, that's...
Why is it not included in your shift? Like, I don't understand. Like, that isn't...
Well, because they're running their butts off during their shift.
Well, it is. If a restaurant closes at 9
I see
and the customers are gone, you still have 2 to 3 hours of cleaning up and getting the place ready for the next morning. So,
but I think that if you're not working a tippable hour, you should be paid whatever the full rate is. Like, I think I think these restaurants are absolutely taking advantage of their staff.
Of course. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then
but I like tipping. If I get a good thing, and she'll look at me, you're an idiot, because I like, if I get good service, because I know what it's like on that other side.
Right.
You do too.
Oh, yeah.
And it's nice to just have a good experience.
Oh, in my experience, it was nice I would get paid every 2 weeks by my regular direct deposit paycheck, but it was nice that every week we would accumulate the tips from the past week And then, of course, with the sheet and the catalog of all the hours that were done throughout the week and the people that worked, it was divvied up evenly, fairly between all of us, or fairly based on how much time you worked. And so for me, looking at it that way, I was like, again, at no point are we ever asking people to tip us. It's never a forced thing. It literally is a jar at the end of the bar that if you feel the need to, you can. And I liked it because every week I would get like a little bag of money. And it was cash too. So I was like, I never really had cash for anything, but it was nice to have like some kind of throwaway cash to have like as a little side thing. So I got like almost 2 paychecks is what it felt like. One was obviously significantly less than the other, but it was nice to just have like a little cash. And it was a little something, and it was nice. And so I appreciated it, but I knew deep down that I never expected, if it came up short one week, I was like, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm getting paid. Like I
was laying you up anyway.
Exactly. I was like, it is all extra anyways. And a lot of times during the holiday season, people were usually always extra generous.
But that's another. Let's take advantage of people too.
Right.
And their kindness is around the holidays.
Yeah.
Everybody now got their hand out. You know, the mailman, the garbage man, the hairdresser. Everybody thinks they should get a tip.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was also crazy at the end of the school year when the states passed a law that says it was unethical for teachers to receive gifts.
Really?
Less than $20. They can only receive something less than $20.
Now they changed the law to where you can give them a $20 or less gift card or something of $20 value.
I guess that's nice.
Because as a state worker, you can't take gifts.
Right.
It's unethical. And teachers, if anybody, deserves a tip.
Yeah.
You know,
or just a little something.
I know some of the kids there because I happen to have one, and they deserve a tip, but that was taken away from them, and that was kind of tragic.
Of all the things to take away from, it's like, man.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, but they brought that back to where they could take $20. You could give them a gift certificate to $20 at Walmart or a food or something like that. Right. That adds up if a couple of kids, you know, talk their parents into doing that.
And again, there's numerous people that give, gift cards to everything from, like you said, food to coffee to whatever. And it's just a nice little gesture.
Right.
Man. Now, one of the non-denominational things that Stoney does, and I think that it's really nice, is that if somebody gives us exceptional service, is he goes and looks out for the restaurant owner or the manager, and he actually applauds and gives kudos to that employee publicly to their boss.
In addition to a nice tip.
And you always are doing that. And I think people cringe because they're expecting the Karen, can I talk to your manager? And they don't know what to expect when you ask them that.
Right. But I don't think Stoney could pass as a Karen. I don't think he fits the
No, but you know what? When you see this big guy coming at you saying you want to speak to the manager.
Yeah, you're like, okay.
What are the pros and cons of dating and marrying me, baby? What are the pros and cons?
One, that you're an asshole.
That's the con, right? The con is I'm an asshole.
I think in the Venn diagram it fits in the middle.
And what's the pro?
You're my asshole.
There you go.
There you go. Oh, that's great.
There's an appropriate time for everything. And in this cancel culture that we have, everybody wants to say something negative.
Oh, of course.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I went to this restaurant one time and had great service. I was absolutely by myself, didn't have anybody there.
Right.
The server was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I need to speak to your manager. And their eyes got as big as the plates.
Right.
Why? I'd like to speak to the manager. I don't think I want to do that. And in my head, I'm going, I'm fixing to give you a compliment.
Yeah, right. Just take it.
I want to speak to your manager. Well, the manager's busy right now.
Right.
Okay. I got it. Well, that person didn't know I knew the manager of the restaurant. So on my way out, I pulled him to the side and talked to him. And I said, but they didn't want to let me speak to you because they were afraid of something I was going to say.
Yeah.
And it was just really nice to see their face change when the manager went and told them. Weren't we somewhere one time when a manager followed us out somewhere?
Mm.
Or met us at the door or something because we were talking to him? Was that was that the owner of that our favorite restaurant? He met us somewhere, didn't he? What was
just
that?
this on Friday? He met us.
Yes, that's right. He met us at the door and just
because
loved
we
talking.
didn't have a reservation, and he made us a table.
Yes, that
Really?
got us a
Wow.
table. Got us, but when you talk to people and you engage and you build relationships, sometimes that's tipping, sometimes that's kind words, sometimes that's just having a relationship with people.
Yeah.
And he was very excited. His employees were like, "Oh my God," because he was shaking our hands. He'd have hugged us probably.
Right.
And they were looking at each other like, "Well, what's he doing?"
And they didn't know what to do because they were
didn't.
apparently packed. We didn't realize that. We didn't realize it was graduation.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so the restaurant was packed, and he's telling them, "Go make them a table." And they're like, "What server do we? We don't know who to."
But when you build that relationship,
Right.
And then we got a good server.
We did.
And I said, "Tip him good. Let him benefit from that relationship."
Right.
And we tipped him pretty good. Had great service. My big thing is I don't want to run out of my drink.
Right.
You go so far as to order 2 at a time.
And the servers that know me, when I walk in, they'll give me one with ice and one with no ice. That way I can just kind of keep filling it up. That person, when they catch that, they're going to get an extra tip. For me, that's an extra $5.
Right.
If you do that on top of everything else, I'm just going to say that's an extra $5.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And now the cat remember the one that brought the picture out of the.
Yes.
I said, "You better give him $10. Yeah. I'm not giving him $10. You better give him $10.
That's funny.
But it's just thinking outside the box and creating relationships.
Right.
That's what everything is in life right now is relationships.
Yeah.
Some people break it down to a monetary relationship, and I'm okay with that. If you give me sucky service,
right,
my relationship with you is going to be a pretty small tip.
Right.
I fascinate her with my thought process on that because, I'll say, "Oh, give them no, just give them something." We didn't have to want, we didn't have to need, and we had a good time.
Right.
Because we cut up wherever we go. We have people rolling. We even had the cardiologist and his nurse rolling one day, just being goofy because I like relationships. I like people.
Right. I love like once you get to a certain level with a server, or I know this is probably against the rules, but when they feel like they can kind of sit down,
they should be able to.
I was like,
if I ever
right.
own a restaurant, if I ever put my chef skills to real use and I open a brick and mortar restaurant, the servers will absolutely be allowed to sit down and talk to you.
Right.
I think that's how you build that relationship.
There was one little hole in the wall restaurant that my dad and my uncle and I went to, and it feels like so long ago that this happened, but there was this young lady that was our waitress, and I just remember she was just on our wavelength of humor, and it just clicked. It was like, was able to get our jokes and just kind of cut up and have a fun time. Mm-hmm. And there was a certain time where it was closing time, and we were like, we had already wrapped up. We've already paid our bill and everything's fine. Kind of just chilling out for a second, about to leave. And then she had kind of finished up. We were one of the last of the 2 or 3 tables that were there. And we were talking and cutting up or whatever. And so she was like, "Do you mind if I just kind of sit down for a second?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And so she just sat down and just continued a conversation. And then of course, because she was already wrapped up or whatever.
Right.
So it was a cool experience because I was like, I never really had something like this before where I just feel like I'm talking with a friend now. And I just met you tonight.
Because here's what the business owners and managers don't get. Relationships. I brought it up a couple of times. You went back, didn't you?
Yeah, a couple more times actually.
Okay, you see what I'm saying?
I think she's, again, to better prove a point, I think she stopped working there, and I haven't really been back.
And you haven't been back.
Right.
So they don't encourage
that. Not on purpose,
All
though. I just don't
want
think I've
is,
ever thought about it.
And most restaurants and places like that have a time schedule. In and out, in and out, in and out. And I kind of get that.
Right.
But you still have to be able to build that relationship with people, too.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? Couple of seconds. It really doesn't take a lot if you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Paying attention and take a couple of extra seconds.
Yeah.
And you've built that relationship. And they're going to be back.
I worked in a drive-through window, and you want to talk about having seconds to speak to anybody. Mm-hmm. A lot of times during the really, really rush hours, you're not supposed to really hold great conversation because obviously you want to get there's a huge line. So obviously efficiency outweighs a lot of things. But there was certain points in the afternoon where there was I can remember people right now from by name and by face that I've had pretty great conversations with.
You said in one of the past episodes that when you left that place how sad some of those
Oh yeah,
people
they
were.
very, yeah.
Them old ladies missed you, don't
Yeah,
they?
exactly. And it was just that kind of, because again, it's like,
Mhm.
again, working at a coffee shop, and again, certain people have specific tastes and they like things a certain way. And just like with you and having your cups of drink and having it a certain way, is like through conversation and through being there for somebody and just kind of just having a surface level conversation that then turns into something extra, you then begin to learn those little things. And
Right.
so there was new people that were like, oh, this lady's kind of asking for something a little bit strange. I'm like, oh, that's just Lisa. Don't worry about it.
Right.
And then
But that's
just
your relationship.
yeah. And
You
it's like, it's she wants this, and likes it this way. It's
Mhm.
not rocket science. She's just kind of particular and just is what it is. And a lot of times, if she didn't get it that way, it's like, oh, I can tell, like, like she would come back, like I wouldn't be there on a Monday or whatever.
Wasn't Ian Wolf.
Yeah,
Ian
right,
Wolf
right,
didn't
yeah,
make it.
right, yeah.
Somebody
she
else
would,
must have
she would
made
come
this.
back. She would like I wouldn't be there on a Monday. She would come back on a Tuesday afternoon and go like, oh, thank God you're here. And then I was like, well, what you mean? She was like, oh, it just wasn't quite as good yesterday. And I was like,
Well, your staff make the experience.
of course.
And, and I think
Right,
a lot of
right.
business owners forget that. And, that said, we've all agreed that good staff is worth their weight in gold and should be tipped accordingly.
Sure.
Mhm.
But we've all been to a lot of restaurants around here where you've got people working the front
Mhm.
that are not personable. They're
Right.
not friendly.
Right.
They're sitting there playing on their phone the whole time or talking to another employee that they barely acknowledge your existence. You see that when you walk into Walmart all the time with the
Right,
cashiers
right,
where
right.
they don't give you the time of day.
Mm-hmm.
Should those people be tipped?
Oh,
No,
it
absolutely not.
It makes it real hard. There's a couple of there's one restaurant in particular that I walk into and there's no lie, 4 or 5 like hosts/hostesses at the little desk and they're all just like playing around talking. And I'm like, hey, I've got like a call ahead, whatever. And they're just like, what? And I'm like, I would like to be seated, please. And I'm like, come on, guys. Like,
Did you hear
they're all
that,
teenagers though. I'm like,
that Walmart is planning on closing Christmas Day so both cashiers can spend time with their families?
What are you talking about? It's all self-checkout now.
Where did we go a while back? We had a little group with us. We don't have to mention the name of it. Do you remember all the hostesses and the wait staff were all around the podium there?
Mm-hmm.
We could see 10 or 15 tables available, and it wasn't COVID restriction time.
And we had to wait over an hour.
We had to wait over an
What?
hour because they were sitting there goofing around and looking at their phones and talking and bebopping
my
and
gosh.
hoo-hoo.
And thinking they were hot stuff.
Yeah, and we couldn't get. We had a table of what, 6? Was it?
Can't.
5 maybe?
Yeah.
5. I don't remember. We had a nice table
Right.
and couldn't get seated.
Well, we had that this weekend. We went out as well. Remember,
Yeah.
we called ahead.
Oh,
we
Lord.
had a reservation.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the restaurant that we decided to go to doesn't do reservations per se, but they do call ahead or they do
Right.
phone ahead seating where you can look it
Yes.
online and they give you a time to show up. And,
Right. I think a lot of places have done that because of COVID.
Yeah.
You can't reserve your seat, but we can.
Which I'll talk about in a second because I think all these restaurants are using COVID as
Oh
an
my God,
excuse
that's a
to do
coping
so many
mechanism.
horrible things. But
Monkeypox is coming.
oh, I know, right? Just in time for midterm elections.
Yeah.
With the restaurant, we had our reservation. We had the email conversation or the text confirmation.
Right.
And so we get there and we check in and they're like, well, we're not seating your party till everyone's here. So we had to wait for everybody to arrive.
Right.
There was only one not there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Right. Okay.
So
How dumb is that?
yeah, so there was 5 of us there.
I would have
of the
classified
6.
that as everybody.
Yeah. It's not like if you're 5 people, you're not taking up a table of 4. You're still taking up
right.
a table for 6.
Exactly.
So it wasn't impinging on anybody to wait, but we waited for that, and then they said, well, what's your reservation under? And so we showed them the text, and they're like, that's not our restaurant. And they're like, well, you're the only restaurant on XYZ Road.
Uh-oh.
And they're like, well, our confirmations numbers end in 7, and that starts in a 1, and we're just like, we have no idea what your system is. It says the name of your street, the name of your restaurant. Here's our
With your
confirmation.
address.
With your address. We've already
should know
waited
your
an
address.
hour. And they're like, well, you'll have to wait another hour and a half. We're just like,
my gosh.
no, we won't.
No, that's not how that works.
So we went to the restaurant next door and got seated right away.
Yeah.
And they missed out on
Yeah.
probably $150 worth of food or more.
Or more. Yeah. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. That's
Wow.
crazy.
So who do you think, profession-wise, should not get a tip? We've talked about the mailman. We've talked about, some of these other things. Personally, I think that with hairdressers and nail technicians and all those kinds of things, I think that they should charge whatever their fee is. If you're a professional, you should charge what your fee is, and you shouldn't have a tip outside of that. I don't care how fancy your haircut is or how fancy your toenails look. If your fee is $50 or $150 or $600, your fee is your fee, and that's you're a professional. That's what your rate is.
That needs to include the equipment or product that was used,
right,
as well as your rate. I think
I agree with that.
When I had my practice, we had massage therapists on staff. We usually had anywhere from 1 to 6 on staff, depending on what our patient volume was. And a lot of people would like coming to a medical office for their massages because you don't tip in a medical office. Whereas if you go go to a massage therapist,
it's expected.
It's expected.
Yeah.
And, if a massage is $100 or $140 or whatever it might be, and you're adding 20% on that, it adds up. And some people end up getting, 2 massages a week or,
Right.
That's adding 20% onto all of that kind of stuff is very costly. So there are people that go out of their way to get them out of medical office. Now there's still people that would come in and try to tip, and I'm like, nope, you don't tip in a medical office. We don't accept those. We don't allow our staff to accept those. And sometimes we would have massage therapists that would get very upset about that. I'm like, we hired you. We told you.
Yeah.
Like, we're paying you, we're paying you a good rate. We're paying you a very fair rate. You're getting paid whether you've got somebody on the table or not.
All right.
So, you're not to accept tips because then that violates a whole bunch of different kind of gray areas in a medical practice. So, again, they're providing a professional service. I don't think that you should tip. I've seen tipping things at the plastic surgeon's office. Like if you're going in for your Botox or whatever, people are wanting tips, and I'm like, no. If you're a professional office, if you're providing a professional service, whether you're painting somebody's house, you're mowing their grass, whatever you're doing, bill the appropriate amount.
Right.
And don't worry about a tip.
Right.
But everybody's got their hand out now and gets disgruntled if they're not getting tips.
A little extra.
And it's like, like my mother pays somebody, I think $120 to groom her dog every month. And then, you put a 20% tip on that. You end up, with almost a $150 haircut for your dog every month.
That's crazy.
And I'm just like, you know what? That's too much.
All right.
It's too much. Everybody's got their hand out, and then they wonder why we're dealing with the inflation that we're dealing with, and we're wondering why we've got all these other problems. It's just like we just need to create a fair wage, and if you're a professional, charge a professional rate.
All right.
And move on.
I mean, that's the same thing I've done. Like if I'm doing anything with photography and editing, like when I've done freelance stuff, I was like, I give the rate that I would like to be paid.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, like obviously, with friends and family, I may go a little bit less than that. And if they want to give me extra, that's fine. But like, if I'm going to go, like if I have a client I'm talking to and I'm going to do this job, I'm going to be working maybe X amount of hours on this thing. This is my rate.
And you should be paid for that.
Right.
And if you're good, raise your rate. And if you're not good,
yeah, right. Maybe reconsider.
The market will level itself.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. The better you are, the higher you can do your rate.
Right.
If people get the word out that you're kind of mediocre, then your rate's going to have to come down a little bit.
The hard thing for me in this whole discussion we've had is when people do the job that they are expected to do, or less than subpar, and then they expect the handout. That's what hurts me. Is like if you are doing just what you are getting paid, like bare minimum. Like you are doing your job, period, or less than, and then you're like, excuse me. I'm like, excuse me, what? Like I don't. You know what I mean? It's like it's one thing.
I do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Excuse me. So that's where it hurts for me. Is it like just it kind of feels disrespectful at that point to be like, you don't gotta do that. Anyways.
But it's like you tip the delivery man.
Right.
You tip, you get furniture delivered, you're tipping them. You've got movers, you're tipping them.
Yeah.
Where does it end?
There was one, so again, at one of my first jobs,
like I said before, I worked like a big wholesale store. and I worked as a cashier, and I worked there for a pretty good time. But it was my first job, and I think coming out of high school, because I like graduated high school, and the first thing I did was like, I got to get a job. I'm just going to work, because I didn't really feel like going to college. I was like, I'm just going to work. I'm just going to save up some money and just have a little bit of independence in this. And so whenever I did that, I worked at this wholesale store as a cashier, and I just busted my ass. I mean, I just was working. I think I still do have a pretty good work ethic, but like back then, I was pretty crazy. I just wouldn't say no to any job that they were throwing at me. Each like section of the store had their own manager, and each manager would like call upon me whenever someone wouldn't show up or someone didn't feel like doing something, because I was always just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, and I just would just get it done, and would get it done pretty good, or as best I could. And so a lot of times that was just a routine for me, where I was probably being overworked a little bit but I was like, I'm making
overworked.
I was thank you.
I don't think you would allow that either.
I was making a shit ton of money too, because again, everyone's getting their hours cut, and I was always the one, like, they would the general manager of the whole store would call me in his office and is like, you can't go into overtime. You got to stop going into overtime. And I was like, yes, sir. I promise. I won't go into overtime. You got it. And then he's like, and also, would you pick up a shift on Wednesday? And I was like, yes, sir. I would do that. and it was just always like, and it was a routine thing where everyone's like, oh, I got shafted more hours. I'm only working 20 something, whatever. And I was like, I can't come in tomorrow because I got over 40 hours. And they're like, how come he keeps stealing all these hours or whatever? And I was like, I'm here.
Try working.
Yeah, I'm just here, and again, I've done a pretty good job. But I'm saying all that because there was a handful of customers that I think also saw that, and then again at the place that I worked, just like, I guess not just like, it wasn't a medical office, but I was not allowed to accept tips personally, because it was, again, conflict of interest or not fair to other people or wages or whatever. And I understand that. And as a 18, 19-year-old, I was pretty vigilant about saying no, because I was like, right. I'm working my wage, I'm busting my tail. And again, so a lot of times it was, as you can imagine, some older ladies that probably couldn't get everything into their vehicle, and a lot of times I could step away from my register, shut down for a moment, and then I would go help them put stuff in their car, or I would like organize it in their buggy to like get it to where they want it to, and then of course, because there was no bags where I was at. So it's like you had to put everything in a buggy and just like, or like a little shopping cart or whatever, and then take it outside. So a lot of times either I would do a little extra there to like make sure everything was all where it was supposed to be, or I would go the extra mile and like go outside and like actually go help them put it in their vehicle, because it was a lot of stuff sometimes. And there was numerous occasions where like these little old ladies would be like, here, take this. And I was like, nah, I really can't. And there was a couple of them that like, that they got smart enough where like I had like a coat, like a vest or whatever that I wore when I worked there, and I was like,
slip you something.
Right, exactly. So in the process of them walking, they would like just sneak it in a little pocket and go like, thank you for really going that extra mile. It really means a lot, and making that experience nice. So I was like, thank you. But it was interesting.
Sounds like to me, Ian has learned at a very early age how to make little old ladies and aliens happy.
Oh my God, no. Not in the same sentence.
Sure.
No. But yeah, so it was just that same sort of, I think, that work ethic of just,
Okay, now, to both of you guys, do you tip when you just go and order food and pick it up yourself?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Like the little Chinese place we go to, I don't leave $1. No, you cooked it, and I had to reach through the window to get it.
Right.
No, I don't do that.
Yeah.
Do you know that in most restaurants that the people that are putting together I can't talk today, the to-go orders are only getting paid the $2.13? They're having to work their 8-hour shift pulling to-go orders, and they're living off of tips.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
That's upsetting.
Yeah.
I was really hoping that wasn't the case.
Me too.
I was like, I hope that person at least gets paid a decent wage.
I
guess they all just get shafted except for the management, I bet.
Probably.
Oh, they're on salary, I'm sure.
Oh, of course. They're
with
taken
bonuses.
Care of. Yes.
With bonuses.
Right. Yeah, that's the sad thing, and that leads us back to the whole COVID and how that's changed restaurants and the tipping industry and everything else. Is I don't think that we've been in a restaurant in the past year that hasn't lowered their menu, not prices, mind you, but lowered the amount of products that are on the menu.
Right.
They've reduced their hours, they've reduced their staff. There's all these shortcuts that they've taken under the guise or under the umbrella that this is because of COVID. They haven't ever turned it back on.
No.
And so it's like we're now expecting almost subpar service.
Yeah.
It's the amount of selections are by half in some of the restaurants that we go to.
That's why I think when you get good service, you should pay a little bit extra for it.
Right.
But see, you won't let me tip 10% if we have really bad service.
Yes, I will.
Well,
yes, I will.
It
It depends on if it's food bad service or if it's server service bad service.
Right.
If it's the service bad service, we're going to give them a little less tip, and we're going to talk to the manager. But if it's great service, we're going to really bump the tip up, and we're still going to talk to the manager. But if it's food service and it's not the service part, we're going to pay the server what they should be paid based on what they're doing, and we're going to let the manager know the food sucked.
Right. What was I going to say? I forgot. What were you just saying? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. You were just saying
with the menu, everything being reduced.
Oh yes. Is that I agree with what you're saying. There is I think that there was a lot of things that were implemented under the guise of COVID, probably justifiably, but I think it was also an opportunity for a lot of restaurants and businesses and corporate businesses to implement things to take away things they didn't want. They didn't,
absolutely.
They didn't
allowed
like
them to be
have.
lazy.
Yeah.
It's like our favorite little Chinese place that's down the road from your house.
Right.
I always order bean sprouts in my Chinese fried rice.
Right.
And that's a Hong Kong type of thing.
Yeah.
Growing up in Canada, we have our Hong Kong Chinese.
Right,
that's the influence that we have. And so she knows when I call up and I say, can you add bean sprouts to everything?
Right.
She knows it's me.
Yeah.
Because she just knows. Ever since COVID, she doesn't bother ordering in bean sprouts. I'm like, how do you have a Chinese restaurant without bean sprouts?
Right.
But to me, it's a mark of laziness because
it's a mark of I want profit too.
Yeah.
Because they've raised their prices and cut their overhead.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay for the bean sprouts, but I'm still going to charge you a little bit more for giving you a little bit less.
Yeah.
A lot of people haven't realized in this time the flat bottom of a container is no longer flat. It's concave. Mm-hmm. And so they're giving you less food.
There's a little pasta restaurant that we used to, when we first started dating, go to all the time. And they moved, what would you say, 4 blocks away?
Yeah.
They doubled their prices.
Oh, my God. What?
So we've been back once since they moved because it's like, you can go and justify spending $18 for a dinner entree.
Right.
I'm not going to go and spend $34 for the same thing.
Yeah.
The portion, nothing has changed.
Right.
I don't mind a restaurant raising their prices $1 or $2. Because right now, with the supply chain the way it is, they're paying more for their stuff too.
Right.
I get the need to keep the doors open. I really do. But when you double your prices, come on.
It's a little bit much.
Come on. And we really haven't been back, have we?
We went once to the new location, and we have never been back. And we used to probably go there at least once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Really?
It was one of the... we've got a small repertoire of places that we go to.
Yeah.
It was on our short list. We liked it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth it. When you're like, I $10 like this thing, I don't $50 like it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of how we feel about, a few different restaurants that they have. Even our favorite restaurant, the steak used to be, I think, was it $37 or something. Excellent steak.
It's $45 now. I don't mind that. How much has beef risen?
Right.
And it's, other than one time, it's guaranteed the best steak in town.
Right.
So I don't mind that. That's okay. Now, if they would have went to $48 or $52,
right, it's a little much.
It wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, that's interesting. The local Walmart that I'm at, I didn't realize how much of a night owl I was until they started closing the doors at like 10, 11 o'clock.
Right.
That really messed me up. I was like, I can't tell you how many times it's
Is there any more 24-hour Walmarts?
if we're talking about it, if we're talking about things that they're doing out of laziness, it could not be laziness, and I could be speaking out of line here, but I'm pretty sure that from articles that I read is that that Walmarts around the U.S. aren't going to be opening back up to 24 hours because they're like, there's just no real need to.
Well, it's their easy way also of stopping theft.
Right.
Because at nighttime is when they lose a lot of their stuff, and they have a policy of don't pursue.
Yeah.
Somebody walks out, you just let them go.
Yeah.
And that's mostly at night, too.
So I think
that gives them an easy way to curtail that.
I think that they have just turned it into the stocking overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like the graveyard shift now that people just go up there and.
That was my favorite time to go shopping at Walmart on
the
weekends
same.
at Friday at 2:00 in the morning.
But you conceal carry. You know, to be fair, if you go to Walmart after 7 p.m., there's a lot of drug addicts in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's just, you don't have the warm fuzzies walking around.
Oh,
you see the crazies come out after 7 o'clock at night.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I've been in there with the kids, and there's been, you know, women with their fuzzy slippers and their baby, and they're almost dropping their baby because they're so out of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not safe. Like, I don't feel safe walking in that parking lot at night.
Yeah.
No one's going to really mess with you, but a lot of people just are not going to feel safe in that situation.
Right.
So now I'm trying to re-engage what that's like to just not be able to go to Walmart past a certain time, just because it's one of those things.
Look how many things are look how many things are closed early.
Right.
You know, you go to the mall, and all the stores used to be open till 9 p.m. Now they're not. You know, now a lot of them they close at 6, or they have all these shortened hours put on their windows.
Well, and I think also
it's hard to get staff too.
Yeah,
they don't have the same staff that they used to have.
Not to be disrespectful, but there's a certain clientele that goes to the mall now, is what it feels like. People that are there to do nefarious stuff.
Sure.
Because
there's been shootings. You know, there's been multiple shootings at our mall.
There's been a couple of stuff that, like,
I can understand why people don't want, but it's just we've all had to change our shopping habits, our buying habits, our restaurant habits, all of these different things. You know, we used to think nothing of going out to a restaurant at 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
Now you'd be hard pressed to find where the kitchen's still open at 9 o'clock at night.
Yes, and that was just the other night. We had that same predicament. We were just chilling out at the house for a while, and I think it was 8, or I think it was approaching. It was 9 o'clock, probably approaching 10 o'clock. And I looked at it, and I was like, I wish I could get something to eat. And I looked at the time, and I was like, well, I mean, I guess never mind. There's nothing going to be open, because I'm not going to go to a restaurant 30 minutes to close.
Well, that happened after the last podcast. We were hungry. We didn't want to cook. That was
right.
when you were going to make your steak.
Yes.
And Stoney was like, okay, let's go get some steak. And so we go to our steak plate. Nope, it's closed. So we said, okay, well, what can we'll go over and we'll get our favorite burger. Closed. So it's like there's, very limited options in this town.
Yeah, right.
So we went to, a Mexican restaurant that's, around the corner, and not my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the only place that was open.
How sad.
And was that at 8:30?
Yeah.
Everything was closed by 8 o'clock?
Oh, man, that's
crazy.
You feel like one of those old-fashioned towns.
Yeah.
Like when I lived in Michigan, it was the town that had the McDonald's, the only one that was allowed to be closed on Sundays in the whole country, because the sidewalks roll up at 5 o'clock, and it's almost like that. That's what we're back to, is that everything rolls up at 5 o'clock and closes.
Yeah, once sundown happens, the whole town goes away.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah.
So speaking of closing.
Oh yeah,
I think this is probably a good place to cut things tonight.
This is the first.
I would like to say one thing before we close. This episode will air on Memorial Day.
Right.
And I would really like just to remind everybody what Memorial Day is and why we have it. Veterans Day is where you thank a veteran for basically writing a blank check to protect us. But Memorial Day is for the veterans that have fallen and are no longer with us. And we ought to take a minute, just kind of a little pause for them and thank them, post, mortem, I guess you could say, and thank them for doing what they did. And then remember to thank a veteran on Veterans Day.
Right.
Because that is a big difference.
Yeah.
So.
And keeping with the theme of today, tip your servers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tip them good.
Tip your bartenders.
Yep.
Maybe not them. I'm kidding.
Oh, tip a bartender.
Yeah, right. Well, I hope that we all offended somebody this podcast episode. This is probably the first episode that I didn't try and force us to close.
Right. I did it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, come on.
He's over here, giving hand gestures. Anyways.
Not that hand gesture.
No, yeah, right. He's over here flipping me out. No, I'm kidding.
He was just waving his hand out for a tip.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
I don't get a tip for this thing.
Once I get a tip, I think you get a tip too. Anyways, if you're trying to find us, you can type in linktree/retrospect pod, and you can find all of our links there. Or you can just type in retrospect pod on Facebook to reach out to us and get in contact with us that way. Or you can just type in retrospect on all the major podcasting platforms. And you should be able to find us. But until next time, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Peace.